Hello everyone and welcome to my Lego room. I'm TJ the Brickwright, and today I'm pretty excited because I'm showing you something that's been in the background of my shots for a few weeks while we've been going through the contest and everything like that, and that is a new TIE fighter. I know, but trust me, I actually have a really good reason for this. A couple of really good reasons, actually. I'm not going to go into full detail on it. If you'd like to know more about it, you can go and read the post that I put up on Rebrickable.com, which includes the instructions for these bent wings. I think the number one reason I was working on this was I was trying to build a bent wing TIE fighter. That's all I was trying to do. And I was trying to get this border around the outside to bend with the wing. And I actually did succeed. If you look at it, it actually is bent with the border all the way around it. It's pretty exciting, actually. But the other reason I decided to put it on a first order vehicle was because I have once again gone down the rabbit hole of finding things that I don't particularly like about the sequel trilogy. This particular one came from watching videos from the Templin Institute, as well as E.C. Henry, who talked about why TIE fighters for the First Order was not a good idea. As I continued down that rabbit hole and was thinking about what kind of vehicle the First Order would use, I kind of thought that eventually the First Order, as I took over the galaxy, would want to transition into something more imperial because they are the legacy of the Empire. So this would be their version of a TIE fighter between episode 8 and 9, when they started production after they'd basically taken over the galaxy. There are things to say about that particular plot line and whether or not that would work, but anyway, this is the idea behind it. So let's take a closer look. Now, there were a few things about the First Order TIE Fighter that I did not mind, especially the Special Forces one. Since that's the only one we got in Lego form, that's the one I ended up modifying. One of the parts I really liked is that they were able to get two pilots inside the cockpit. I think that was a brilliant design. I think it's a fantastic idea, and I thought they implemented it quite well. Because there are two pilots inside, a lot of the mechanics and a lot of the engine components and things like that had to be moved to the outside. That's why we have these giant rings on either side. We have a communications antenna because none of that stuff could be internal. And then on the back, we have that viewport for the gunner and the engines on either side of it, the little emitters. Now, some people may complain about the ship, especially the gun, not gun antenna that's right there. But I still think that as far as the core concept of the ship was concerned, it was actually a really, really well done design. And I'm quite impressed with how they did it. Now, I did make a modification to this particular model. You can see these light bluish gray little extra pieces between the main body and the big round parts. Oh man, what do you call these things? The sideways, the pylons? Is that what they're called? Anyway, so these light bluish gray sections of the pylons I had to extend because without them, the wings were too narrow. The ship looked really, really skinny. While that is a design choice, it's not one I decided to make on this one. I still wanted the proportions to be slightly less narrow on this particular one. I do really like my wide ships. So I did like the body. The only modifications I made to this body were those little light bluish gray sections and the fact that I used snotting techniques around the entire outside so that these rounded sections are actually symmetrical all the way around. Now, another thing that I've done to the inside is actually something I do to all of my First Order TIE fighters, and that is changing the connection points on the ship. So beforehand, these were actually clips. They were not the hinge plates. They were just clips that snapped on. And those clips popped out constantly. I've had 3 or 4 of these ships, and every time these stinking little clips would pop the wings off while I was trying to play with it. Make sure to swap them out and only use the male end of the hinge on this one and the female end of the hinge on the wing. And that way, it will slip on and clip on absolutely perfectly, and it will not come off while you're playing. because it's got 4 connections. You think the clips would have done that, but they don't. Now, there's a couple of reasons why I decided to change the wings the way I did. So the First Order, Special Forces TIE Fighter, and even the regular TIE Fighter look almost identical to the original trilogy fighters. And I always thought that was a little bit of a cop-out, and it's hard to tell the difference between the Special Forces and the regular one, other than the red stripe on it, and then, of course, the little pylons, which was okay, but the wings being flat made it a lot more difficult to differentiate. E.C. Henry came out with a Star Wars design video where he talked about the fact that even in the original trilogy and in all the previous Star Wars films, if something was improved, you could visually tell it was different. You could see from the profile from any direction that the ship was not the same as another ship. There were similarities, yes, but they were very distinct. And so you could tell from even far away that they were different. So I tried to fix that. I wanted to get that bent wing configuration on there. Obviously, I was working on the technique at the time. But I thought it worked really well in this situation because I thought that the First Order TIE Fighters looked too much like the original trilogy. So changing it a little bit also helped in the iconography. The other idea behind it is it also denotes a little bit of upgrade for the TIE Fighter, because a regular TIE Fighter with a flat wing, that's like the #1 target. If you've ever played a Star Wars video game, the best way to come at a TIE Fighter to shoot them is from the side, because you've got a giant hexagonal target. Now in this case, with the bent wing, if you were coming at it straight from the side, assuming that this new ship has a deflector shield, and that's what these little things could denote, even just a mild deflector screen, when a laser comes in, it more easily would deflect, especially if the ship is turning and moving. You can see how getting a direct shot is a little bit harder. It's not much harder because the bend is very slight, in my opinion, but it could just give it that much more so that targeting from the side or even from a slighter angle may not be as effective as it used to be on the original TIE Fighters. Now, I know I've told you guys one of my biggest pet peeves is vehicles that are upgraded or modified, but the only way you can tell that they're modified is if you read the source material or the books. Not my favorite way for things to be done. I want to be able to see the difference on the ship. I don't want to just be able to have you say, oh, they're upgraded laser cannons. No, make them beefier, make them bigger. That's how I know they're upgraded. I want to be able to look at the ship and say, hey, look, I've seen it. Now I know it's better. So that was the idea behind making this modification, is that now from a forward profile, let me grab the other TIE Fighter here. So I do have a made First Order. You can see the difference now. They are very, very different. You can see these wings are a lot taller. They're also thinner. So square footage wise or square inch wise, you've got about the same surface area, but now even from the side, it's very different. You could tell the difference between these two even in silhouette form. My one disadvantage is that if it's like a shadowed environment, you can see that these shapes are very similar, and it may not perfectly allow you to differentiate them at first glance. It may take you an extra second to go, wait a minute, this one has little cut ends, so that's how I know it doesn't come to a point that it's that particular one. It's also skinnier. But I think I did a pretty good job of differentiating it just enough that you could tell that it'd be different, and possibly a modified or upgraded version, kind of harkening back to the TIE Interceptor with the bent wings, or the TIE Advance that Vader flew. There are a lot of different things that you could associate with these bent wings, and an upgraded TIE Fighter is definitely one of them. As you can see also, I changed up the pattern on the wings. Instead of the star pattern going from the center to the outside, I chose to go with this particular pattern of design with the 2 smaller sections and then the 2 larger sections. And the reason I did that is because I didn't have enough parts to do anything different. This was actually totally out of necessity, but as I was looking through some other people's designs of TIE fighters, I saw a similar version of the line pattern on the wing, and I said, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and give that a try. And it worked out really well, and I had enough parts to do it on both sides. So happy day all around. But that's okay. All right. And that is it. So I hope you guys enjoy that. Like I said, the instructions for the wings, and just the wings right now, are on rebrickable.com. They are free, so you're welcome, Galaxy. I was just really excited about this technique of the bent wing, and I'm really excited to see how people use that technique and the kinds of ships that we're able to get in the future. And that's everything for today. Thank you so much for hanging out in the Lego room with me. I'm TJ the Brickwright, and until we see you next time in the Lego room, play well.